need a.
Oh, he locked onto me? No. Good. Well, hello everyone in the cyberspace. This is Dr. Thompson from Ricketts High School, and this is our podcast that we have going on here for Ricketts High School for the Black History Month program, a podcast series where I'm interviewing my students on one of the topics to which they did for Black History Month. This one is about Booker T. Washington versus W.E.B. Dubois. Last semester, they wrote a paper that was really good. And this paper really, sparked me to think that I could get their work published, just like the last two students that we did. So for Boston University, their work will be edited, put it all together, and now they're going to talk about it. Or it's just as promised, we got here. So wave your hand. Hopefully the camera moves to you. If it didn't move, I'm going to move it myself. Please don't do this to me. Go over there. Over there. All right. So now we got Miss Mian, Jasmine Mian. And then we have Mr. Kuntz. We have it won't move. Oh my goodness. Now we have Miss Washington. Jasmine Washington, and you are not Jasmine Washington. I taught her. That is Giovanni Washington, and then we also have Charles Clark.
Do somebody want to stand up or something?
Nah, I think we got it. All right, so without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our questions for our podcast. Turn sideways.
Turn sideways.
All right. So yeah. Just go ahead and pick it up. It's okay.
And it cost me money or anything.
It's close enough.
All right. So what are some of the issues of that's facing the African American community today? Anybody want to?
I'll take the lead here. So based on what I found, one of our major issues for this would be criminal justice reform. Born about 32% of prisons population, and only 6% were from the U.S., and most of that 6% is from Black people only. Basically, we are 5% more likely to be incarcerated during our lifetime than white men, and 40% longer sentence times than the white men.
Yeah, that's pretty tough stuff.
What about our people are also struggling to find jobs, and we are also dying to gang violence, which is prevalent.
Yeah, so I feel like the gun violence and gang violence is like really top tier.
That's one of the top issues in the Black community.
Honestly, something I've just seen in like everyday life, just it stuns me a lot, is how much negatively impacted people are by being just stereotyped. People think such negative things about the African American community, and I think it's just so bizarre because they will just immediately stereotype the next person they meet.
Yeah, and that can really, stereotypes kind of stems to the racism that would lead to the mass incarceration of African Americans and to the gang violence even, because some people might think that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do because this is what I grew up seeing in, say, television or radio, saying that this is, how I'm supposed to act. So this is how I'm gonna act. This is how I'm supposed to be. So this is how I'm going to be. Good answers. All right. So next question we got is about the papers that you all did. Is like, who was Booker T. Washington, and what was his major contributions to the world?
Well, he lived in West Virginia. He moved to West Virginia after he escaped slavery because he was born a slave. His mom was a slave, and his dad was a slave master.
Okay.
Backstory.
Good backstory.
Good backstory.
Yeah, but so like, what else do we know about Booker T?
Booker T, he was a civil rights activist and a philosopher. And he was a writer also, wrote many books. One of his books, I believe, were called this is one of his books.
Up from Slavery. I remember that for sure. He wrote his autobiography.
And one of those, either one of the books he made or autobiographies was his philosophy was self-sufficient. That's one of his
Self-sufficiency. Yeah, that's for sure. All right.
Yeah, and I know that he was the president of now known, I think it's Tuskegee Institute, and that he either helped formed or was one who formed the National Negro Business League.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I would just say that he was someone who tried to let others understand that colored people were just as white as white people.
That's true. That's true.
He tried to fight for like economical security for us blacks and believed in like practical education.
Yeah, on all of these things, we're trying to combat some of the stuff that we even going through today, especially like thinking about how many black businesses are operated now. And he kind of started the Negro Business League back then, trying to, maybe curve what was happening when blacks couldn't start businesses. He was like, I'm gonna use my wealth and knowledge and other people to help support this cause. And then Tuskegee Institute is still standing today. It's in Alabama it's not Tuskegee Institute, it's a whole university now where they're really graduating a large amount of black people in fields of science and fields of medicine and things like that, and which is a pretty cool thing to know that he started this way back in the late 1800s, and it's still opening now. It's still open now.
Yeah.
All right. And so my phone keep closing, and I didn't print out my questions. But I'm gonna keep on going. All right. So why would some people disagree with Booker T. Washington's ideas back then, or even today? Like, why would people not support his idea, especially the part about like only practical education or something like that?
Well, was it the Atlantic Compromise?
Yeah,
Atlantic Compromise is what it's called.
Well, he was trying to talk to both the white people and the black people, and in his speech, from what I remember, he didn't care for us blacks being in political positions.
Yeah.
And he more so wanted us to have more education, and we can worry about that later.
Yeah.
And I know some people would rather blacks be in office than just not at all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, at least that's what they criticized him for.
Mhm.
And I think it's also important that, those businesses and especially back then, maybe not so much of now, but back then for sure, what he wanted was, hey, let's focus on getting our money up, is how we would say it today. Let's focus on the minority community and the African American community, getting their money up so that we could, put this money aside, maybe build us a candidate to, later on for somebody to run for office. But if we take care of our businesses, we take care of our homes first, then everything else will come after. I think that's what he might have been referring to back then. Anybody else got what they might have?
Yeah. What I found was that some blacks at the time said he was too passive. Even though he was trying to do the right thing, they said they wanted something stronger.
Yeah.
To get out more quicker, more better. But they just believe like he was just too passive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was also like a difference today is he wanted them to study practical education, and I think nowadays people would want so much more than that, just practical education.
Yeah.
And for him to like focus on practical education and economic rights, I would think that he was just focused on some certain civil rights, and
Mhm.
now people would want to work towards all of them instead of focusing on some.
Yeah, just working in the farms or working in the fields. That's what the type of practical education to which he was talking about. And in his defense, I think that it's important to understand that African Americans, a large group of them, this is before the Great Migration. This is before blacks were moving in large numbers going to the north for the factories. He's like, why leave the South where you know how to work down here already? Just try to work your way to own some land, make some farms, sell some farm goods. You already know how to use a tractor. You already know how to do these things, mechanical things. Why don't you just do that instead versus trying to go up north where you may even encounter a different type of racism that you might not be aware of. And which was also a part of what he said in the what is dubbed the Atlantic Compromise speech. But so anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, to go back on what you said, in my paper, his exact words were African Americans should concentrate all their energies on industrial education and accumulation of wealth and the conciliation of the South. So I feel like that, and then tied into what you said, it kind of like, it's talking about the education and everything and how they should stay in the South and everything like that.
That's good. That's good. All right, this is a good discussion so far. All right, who was his counterpart? Who was W.E.B. Du Bois, and what was his major contributions to the world?
Du Bois was also another civil rights activist, a leader, a socialist, a writer, and an educator, and a founder of the NAACP.
Yeah, NAACP. Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. All right. Anybody else got anything?
I think
In my research, I found that he was the editor of The Crisis.
Yeah, it was a magazine.
Yeah, and he was also he made a book called The Philadelphia Negro, and in the book he discussed problems with Black in urban settings.
Yeah.
And he found that some uneducated Black men were the source of crime in that area. So them being uneducated led to them being jobless and in poverty, which made them criminals.
Yeah, well, it led them to do criminal acts. Yeah. Which goes back to what we initially talked about, the problems that we face in African American community today. And just in America today, not just the African American community, but all across the United States, you see where usually, and to point out, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote considered the first sociology books, or the study of human studying groups of people. And so he, in that Philadelphia Negro book that he wrote, which is to a degree, not just the first, but still used sociology book today to study, statistics, humans in statistical manners, humans in a lot of different manners. This basically allowed for us to understand what was the causes of some of the problems that was happening in these minority communities. And just like you said, usually poverty leads to crime. Same thing could be said today. Ms. Mian, you had anything?
I just wanted to add on for how you said he was very much opposing to Washington, that he did so much as do the Niagara movement, where he basically opposed to Booker T's Washington's ideas. And from what I seen, that it was kind of the forerunner for NAACP.
The NAACP, it was. The Niagara movement was. And like you said, man, he got these other groups of people that was against Washington and his ideas. And it was after a race riot occurred. He said, man, we're going to go to Canada so we can freely talk about what's happening in the African American community. And we're going to form an organization. Eventually, that organization turned into the NAACP. Mm-hmm. All right. So why did some people disagree with Du Bois? Did we find anything in our research that said that people had some disagreements with him? Can y'all just think of anything off the top of y'all head? Why would his ideas not be the best for the time being that they were in?
I think that most people would say that just fighting for all of them would maybe too much to focus on. And with Booker T. Washington's, he was able to focus on one at a time and build up to all those civil rights. When, W. Du Bois, he was, let's go for all of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be rather difficult for all, say for instance today, we try to tackle all the things at the same time. Our leaders today, or if we actually have quote unquote leaders today, they may suffer from trying to, all right, let's end, police brutality. All right, let's end poverty. Let's do all the things. You can't do everything. You got to leave something for somebody to do. And I think that Washington, like you said, kind of took an approach of let's take one thing at a time and try to tackle it one step at a time. What's another thing that you can think of?
In my research, I'm not sure if this was in the Philadelphia Negro, but he wanted Blacks and whites to work together for full rights of everyone, or Blacks specifically, but mostly everyone. Yeah. So everyone could be together and not separate. But back then, Blacks didn't want to work with the white people, and white people didn't want to work with the Black people, so they didn't want to work together for one specific person's civil rights.
Yeah, and that happened, and sadly, I think it's safe to say, and we know that there were some white people back then that would try to reach across the aisle to help African Americans, and there were some Blacks who reached out, like Booker T. Washington. You know, he was like, hey, I would like to receive help from whoever would help. He got help from Andrew Carnegie, a Scottish immigrant. But I think that even today, you know, I think it's beautiful that we can sit here with a Latina and four African Americans kind of talking about, you know, some race relations of the past and how it connects to today. But it wasn't that easy back then, like you stated. Like it was just harder to do, to get people of different ethnicities together to talk about the problems that they had. Anybody can think of anything else that they might have disagreed with Dubois?
Well, one thing I won't want to say that he was probably too aggressive, but I'm not sure if he did lead any marches. But no, that they could be at the time. It would be really dangerous to do a march because it could be false. Just like I believe the Melania massacre. If I said that right. Elaine
Massacre. Yeah.
They was just doing a march, and then it was false told that they was going to kill all the white men, and the army came, and you know over 100 people had died.
Yeah.
So I won't say it's too aggressive, but it's pretty aggressive.
Yeah. You're right. You're right, and that's the importance of studying our history. You know what I mean? If we can kind of know what happened in the past, we can learn from it. You know, which is why we do what we're doing now. So our next question. Anybody else have anything to say before we move on? All right. So, what ideas did Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, not necessarily, what did they disagree on with like each other? I think we kind of already tackled that, right?
Yeah.
Like we know that one wanted full civil rights for African Americans, while the other thought that we should get them deliberately. What did they both agree on? Was there anything that we can say now in 2023 and Black History Month in February?
Yeah.
Like, can we say that there was some things that we know they both agreed upon that got us where we are today?
I feel as if they agreed on everything they did, but they went about how to deal with it differently.
Yes.
Like they both wanted education for Black people. They both wanted civil rights for Black people. They just wanted it done at different times and different ways.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Mhm.
That was a pretty eloquent answer.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody want to add to that.
I don't know if I can top that.
Yeah, like that was, you know, and I mean, not to make this like a talking heads kind of competition thing, but hell, I can't say anything different than that. I just said a curse word on live stream, but
it was very well put. Very well said.
But what you said was it was very well said. So yes, they both had two ways of going about getting to equal rights, equality, more rights, better economic situations for the minority communities, and they just had different ways of going about getting to those things. So how was there to like using the things that we know about them? How was their approaches different? Like, what did Booker T. Washington do that was so different from what W.E.B. Du Bois did? Can y'all think of anything?
Walter, we already know one's passive and one's aggressive, but I believe the Bows probably did a little bit more than Booker T with the NAACP Association and also the Niagara movement in 1905.
Yeah.
And what's that?
Well, we know those two things. Well, we know that the NAACP still exists.
Mhm.
What still exists from Booker T. Washington? You mentioned it earlier.
Was it the National? No.
His
His
university.
institute. Yes,
his institution, right? And so I remember I would have these conversations with some of my colleagues back in college. And, you know, I think because I'm a teacher, I kind of taught y'all in a very softer manner that they are generally the same people. You know, history tends to try to make dualism between individuals. You know, you had, Booker T. Washington versus W.E.B. Du Bois. And then in the 1960s, you had Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. Even just like them two individuals back then with these individuals that we were referring to in our podcast today, they both generally had the same ideas. They just did their thing in two different ways. So I think that that's rather important. But so I tried, man. But their approaches were definitely different between the both of them. All right, and so lastly, and I know we coming up on the close of this thing. I'm gonna throw one curveball question in though. But this last question is, how might we use these ideas to help the Black community today, or just the all minority groups of people today? How can we use the ideas of both Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois to make the world a better place today? Anybody?
I think with Washington's ideas for the economic rights, it could help a lot of people who are now struggling in these like maybe poorer areas and who can't always send their kids to school or just have self-finance.
Yeah.
I feel like if Washington specifically was alive today, he tried to help more, not so high, not like the Black people in the lower class try to get out of poverty and try to help them like start their businesses or like get jobs instead of being in where they are now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I agree with that.
Honestly, I feel like we could use the ideas. Like Washington he created the university. Anybody in this room, anybody in the world could create a university to help Blacks. And then Dubois, he created many organizations, and we can do the same thing. I just feel like if you put your mind to it, you'll be able to do all this. And if you really want to help Blacks or want to help a specific culture, you'll do it.
Man, I feel you. That's good. We can use everything they taught us.
Yeah. Well, I would say is really mentorship. These guys were just going out there. It's like, hey, come join me. Let's start a whole turnaround revolution. They talked to these people. Broke down one by one, made books about it. They've really been in the detail and encourage them to step up. Let's stop this. Let's turn this around. So I'll say mentorship. They wasn't just out there just screaming. They were actually speaking to them.
Okay, yeah, mentorship that's definitely a big deal. So, yeah, man, I don't have nothing else to add. One curveball question. One question I know y'all wasn't prepared for. Y'all should be ready for this though. All right, can you think of any other problems, not just the original problems that we talked about within the Black community, but maybe so much in the just minority community as well, like Asians, our Latino community, Hispanic community, any minorities that we have in America? How could these two individuals maybe even help them? These two people help our minority communities today, I guess is what I'm asking. You know what I'm saying? Like, how could Booker T. Washington's ideas help the Hispanic community? Or can they be used to help everyone? You know what I'm saying? I just want to see where y'all mind's at with that.
I can say for one, for being a Latina, that a lot of us are very uneducated. They don't stay in school and they don't go to school or in general because they either drop out and they do what they know, construction, for example. But I think with their ideas of keeping them in school or even starting them in school, that they could have a better life with economically and just be paid more, have a better education.
That's true.
I feel as if specifically if Du Bois was alive or he would try to help other communities, he'd more so try to bring us all minorities together as one and try to tackle the greater deal as it's not to say it's us against them, but he would try to, instead of us being separate, he tried to make the community just minority except Black, Latino, Asian. He just be one
big group. Yeah, it's to kind of counter whatever discrimination that they all may face together. I get that.
No, that's a good question. But I would say what he said, just make them all
work together. And you
better.
think that Du Bois would be responsible for that, or Washington?
I would say Du Bois, but at the same time, I think Washington could do it as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's more than just Blacks going to Tuskegee. You know what I'm saying? And even though it was designed specifically for Blacks, but Blacks couldn't go to any other school, I'm sure now that anybody, any ethnicity, race, or creed,
right, if there was another ethnicity that was struggling or something, I'm pretty sure Washington would try to help them as well.
That's a fact. In fact, that's a fact. I do some research that I've done when I was back in my master's degree at FAMU. I found out that at least one of the books that I was reading is that he helped quite a bit of other communities. He just didn't want to have it publicized because he knew he would not receive the support that he needed from, shall I just say it, white community that he was getting. If they found out that he was using the money not just for Black students, but for sending money to Cuba or sending money to Puerto Rico and getting students from over there and coming into Tuskegee, they probably be like, hold on, you're doing too much now. So we're gonna stop giving you money. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, which the point that you made, Ms. Washington, Giovanni, that was a good one. Very good. Go ahead.
I would say Booker, they both wanted segregation. But I say
desegregation. Yeah.
desegregation. But I say Booker really wanted it more. She led up to him when they did have a good point. So I just like that. But with more desegregation, I would say he wanted it more and tried to get it out there more. But as he just said, he tried to keep it on the low because they'll start giving them money to do what they need to do.
Yeah, man. That's true. My turn, I guess, to answer, right? So I don't know, man. I'm always back and forth when it comes to whether or not I feel like about Booker T. Washington who did more or could do more today, or if not just Booker T. Washington, but W.E.B. Dubois, would he do more? I think about what they did and what still applies. Like the NAACP is still fighting for colored people, the National Association of Colored People, not just Blacks. So when something happens in any minority community, they standing up. They're the first ones to go and be like, all right, we'll be your lawyer. Well, let's see what we can get done. Versus Washington, he still got that institution, brick and mortar, still standing. You know what I mean? And he had something called the Tuskegee Machine, which we really didn't get into yet, but we are in this current unit that we're in, where people would graduate from his school and they would go on and create other schools, and then create other schools or create other businesses. And so like I think what Ms. Mian was saying earlier, and I think what Philip was saying earlier, is that Washington has something that kind of spawned into other areas, and I think that, I don't know, man, I still didn't answer the question, but I don't know. I'm just gonna go with Booker T. Washington, man. He probably would have been more effective in today's society with helping minorities start businesses, helping minorities get into school, get educations. I'm not sure if Washington would have been about that. Anybody disagree?
Washington.
I think.
Yeah, Washington. Yeah. Booker T. Washington would have been funding it. Yeah. I don't know.
But it would still be helping.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's help. That's definitely help. And I'm not trying to create a point of contention, just more discussion. But really, we actually went a great deal of time, 27 whole minutes. So there's no one in our chat. The last time we took questions from the chat, but so no one's in our chat. So we're gonna conclude our podcast today. Good job. Give yourselves a hand. Again, audience or whoever gonna watch this in the future, these students did such a good job on the paper. I'm going to put it all together, and they're going to be published high school students, which is a great big deal. Not a lot of adults that have college degrees can get their work published, and I'm going to fight to get their work published in a student-led magazine out of Boston University. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Rickard's family. Have a great day. Learn something. Love y'all. So we got to end the stream.
It's very subtle.